Bueno, pues empezamos. Bueno, pues muy buenas tardes y sean bienvenidos y bienvenidas todas y todos a esta presentación del libro de Rob Riemen, La palabra que vence la muerte, publicado por la editorial Taurus. Y agradecemos en primer lugar el tiempo y la presencia de Rob Riemen, presidente y fundador del Nexus Institute, y también de Evelyn Riemen van der Ham, que es miembro del Consejo y Chief Executive Officer del Nexus Institute. También agradecemos la presencia del rector, el doctor Rafael López Portillo, así como de los miembros del Consejo Universitario, la vicerrectora académica maestra Guillermina Torres Sabín, la vicerrectora de Enlace Institucional, la maestra Mónica Mijares Martínez, el secretario general de Desarrollo Institucional, maestro José Luis Moronati, y la directora general de Educación Continua, la maestra María Teresa Atrián. Gracias también a todos los directores de colegios, centros y áreas de la universidad, su presencia, profesoras, coordinadores, profesores, compañeras y compañeros, y a nuestros 3 estudiantes, Emilio, Karen y Regina, que se atrevieron con entusiasmo, como diría López Quintás, han sido poseídos por Dios, en este caso por la lectura de Riemen, para participar. Agradecimos también todas las gestiones y el apoyo de la editorial Random Taurus con el editor de Rob Riemen, que hicieron posible que él estuviera aquí, Romeo Tello, por hacer posible su presencia. Para empezar, déjenme hacerles una presentación lo más breve posible de Rob Riemen, y después pasaremos a la primera sección de la presentación, y la idea es que nuestros 3 alumnos, cada uno, va a leer una sección corta del libro para que puedan sentir, para que puedan vivir las palabras de Rob. Después de eso, cada uno de los alumnos hará una pregunta a Rob, y Rob ahí podrá explicarnos sobre su libro y abriremos el foro para todas las preguntas que se puedan tener. Como dicen por ahí, tenemos tiempo, ¿no? Porque puede ser hasta la medianoche o la madrugada, pero bueno, entonces, muy bien. Bueno, Rob Riemen es escritor y es fundador del Nexus Institute en los Países Bajos, estudió teología en la Universidad Tilburg, tiempo que él recuerda como su era de la montaña mágica en relación a la obra maestra de Thomas Mann, La montaña mágica, de donde han surgido las preguntas que le han ocupado toda su vida: ¿qué significa la humanidad y qué es la vida? ¿Cómo es que el humanismo europeo se ha desvanecido como un ideal de civilización? ¿Cuál es el valor del arte y de la cultura? Por lo que en el año 91, junto con su amigo Johann Pollack, Riemen lanzó el journal filosófico cultural que persiste hasta la fecha, Nexus, que es publicado 3 veces al año con pensamientos provocadores de prominentes pensadores y escritores de todo el mundo, así como las series en inglés Cultura Anime, presentando los mejores ensayos de Nexus para un público internacional. Como ha dicho Riemen, esta primera parte de la presentación va a ser en español, porque Riemen ya se la sabe, ¿no? Y la segunda va a ser en inglés. Y dice Riemen, un journal con esta era en mente, pero no de estos tiempos, socialmente relevante, pero no político, con espacio para las preguntas filosóficas y religiosas, pero no siendo un journal de religión o filosofía, de calidad intelectual, pero accesible. Iniciativa que se convirtió en la fundación en el año 94 del Nexus Institute, que desde hace 31 años reúne en conferencias, lectures y masterclasses a las mejores voces de intelectuales, artistas y políticos a pensar y conversar acerca de las preguntas que realmente importan. ¿Cómo debemos vivir? ¿Cómo deberíamos forjar nuestro futuro? ¿Qué podemos aprender del pasado? ¿Qué valores son importantes y en qué se fundamentan? En Nexus han estado personalidades como Sonia Gandhi, Michael Ignatieff, Mario Vargas Llosa, George Steiner, John Coetzee, Richard Rorty, Jürgen Habermas, Daniel Barenboim, Wynton Marsalis, Andrei Tarkovsky, Didi Huberman, Belatar, Joshua Bell, Slavoj Žižek, Amos Oz, Orhan Pamuk, entre muchos, muchos otros. Y actualmente, gracias a la iniciativa de Evelyn, es posible, por una suscripción, de la que no tengo regalías, pero la recomiendo, acceder en línea a todos los eventos de Nexus. Rob ha escrito varios libros desde el año 2008, La nobleza de espíritu, La Universidad de la vida, Para combatir esta era, El eterno retorno del fascismo, El arte de ser humano, y la obra que presentamos el día de hoy, La palabra que vence la muerte. La mayoría publicados a varios idiomas y en español por la editorial Taurus. y además ha impartido una multitud de conferencias magistrales y seminarios prácticamente por todo el mundo, desde los Países Bajos hasta China, de China a Turquía, de Turquía a África y por supuesto a México y Latinoamérica. Then, dear Rob, let me tell you first of all, thank you for being here, and thank you for Evelyn for giving both your time, life to Nexus Institute, where the muses have found at least a place to renew their life through the voices of the masters from all over the world that you congregate every year to sit in the same table, in the same forum, putting aside their particular positions and circumstances for being able to have a conversation about the great and eternal questions of the spirit where all human beings could see in the same mirror. A time that can only have sense as a work of love, and that's why we in the Claustro appreciate your time here, that resists the journey of the pilgrims for not dying in the desert of the real. Your resistance is our hope, your love is our inspiration, your words are certainly a way to defeat death, and your friendship is a testimony that each of us is unique in its own dignity. Thank you for 10 years of friendship, 31 years of next journey, of being one of the few vox clamantis in deserto, driven by the reasons of the heart and the passion of faith for the truth. Which truth? The hidden source of love, reminding us that, as Kierkegaard says, if we only believe in what we see, we have to begin to not believe in love. And this credo that I think you have been giving as a gift to the world in the forgotten art of reading of your books have arrived today to this beautiful Claustro de Sor Juana, where the spirit of the so-called 10th muse, Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz, resonates as the passion for reading, as she used to say, and I used to listen from the rector and the ex-rector, la maestra Carmen Beatriz, she said, Sor Juana Inés, I read not to know more, but to ignore less. Today, then, this presentation is a time to celebrate because we want to say to you, you are not alone. Here you are welcome, and we are witness of a joyful encounter in the road of the pilgrims that have followed the same star and in different language pray to the same love, the love that is in the heart of the poets, as St. Paul has said in a famous passage, if we don't have love, we don't have nothing. Thank you very much for being here, Rob Riemen. Thank you for all of you. And then we will begin to give readings to the book. No? Now in the Spanish, we will begin the readings to the book, and then I ask our student of the 7th semester, del séptimo semestre, from Creative Writing, Regina Albores, nos pueda leer un pasaje del libro de Rob, que es el ensayo que tiene que ver lecciones de un moribundo, que habla de Thomas Mann. Adelante, Regina.
And may I first say thank you to you, Rafael. You're a very generous man. And even if we take away everything which I have some doubts about, thank you. It's a very, very generous way, and it's a great honor to be here. This is one, definitely after I had met the rector and Monica. You're all lucky people, that you can spend a couple of years of your life in such a place. I wish it was given to me, but at least it will be given to me at least one evening. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Buenas noches, yo soy Regina Albores y voy a leer un pasaje del capítulo La lección de vida. El 6 de junio de 1935, Thomas Mann cumple 60 años y Sigmund Freud, que ya tiene 79, le envía una felicitación que lo impresiona tanto que no lo olvidará jamás. Querido Thomas Mann, acepte usted mi cordial saludo para su 60º aniversario. Soy uno de sus más viejos lectores y admiradores, y podría desearle una vida muy larga y dichosa, como es usual en una ocasión de esta índole. Pero me abstengo de hacerlo. Desear sale barato. Y me parece una recaída en las épocas en que se creía en la omnipotencia mágica del pensamiento. Y por mi más íntima experiencia, creo también bueno que un destino compasivo ponga oportuno término a nuestra vida. Además, no me parece cosa digna de imitarse que en tales oportunidades festivas la ternura prevalezca sobre el respeto y se obligue al festejado a escuchar cómo se lo abruma con loas en su condición de hombre y se lo analiza y critica en su condición de artista. No quiero incurrir en esa arrogancia, pero sí que puedo permitirme otra cosa. En nombre de incontables contemporáneos suyos, me siento autorizado a expresar nuestra certidumbre de que usted nunca hará o dirá, puesto que las palabras del poeta son obras, nada cobarde o bajo, y aún en tiempos y situaciones que extravíen el juicio, andará por el camino recto y se lo enseñará a los demás. Cordialmente, Freud. Y aunque Thomas Mann no necesitaba estas palabras de aliento, las valoró, porque este experto en la psique humana, al que admiraba sinceramente, supo formular de manera contundente lo que él mismo consideraba la esencia y mayor responsabilidad de su arte: el lenguaje, proteger el significado de las palabras. El lenguaje es la esencia de nuestro ser humanos. Solo sabemos pensar usando lenguaje, palabras, nuestras experiencias, nuestras emociones más profundas, las expresamos y podemos comunicarlas gracias a los dones de las musas. Nos conocemos a nosotros mismos en el lenguaje. Solo podemos trascender la realidad existente en el lenguaje, porque solo el lenguaje nos permite hablar de un pasado, un futuro, nos da esperanza. Gracias al lenguaje hay sentido, pero solo en palabras que sean verdaderas. Así se lo hizo sentir muy profundamente aquel verso de Goethe: las palabras nos hacen comprender, dan vida, pueden revivir lo que está muerto y mortecino. Sí, estimado profesor Loeffler, también las palabras pueden curar, pueden vencer la muerte. De niño, Thomas Mann siempre asistía con sus padres al culto dominical en Lübeck y quedó fascinado con la historia, en el Evangelio según San Mateo, sobre el centurión romano de Cafarnaúm que le pide a Jesús que ayude a su siervo, que está postrado en casa, paralítico, gravemente atormentado. Jesús le promete acompañarlo a su casa y curar al siervo, a lo que el centurión responde con palabras que a Mann le parecen mágicas: Señor, no soy digno de que entres bajo mi techo, solamente di la palabra y mi criado sanará. Y así sucedió. A un racionalista como Freud no le interesaría esta historia. Es que Freud no era un poeta. Aún así, decía Mann, también el propio Freud sabría que una existencia significativa, aquello que engrandece de verdad al hombre, se obtiene hablando y practicando una gramática de la vida. La libertad y la verdad, la amistad y la lealtad, la sabiduría y la valentía, el amor y la poesía, la justicia y la armonía conforman la gramática fundamental de nuestra existencia. Son cualidades humanas que dan vida, que pueden inspirar, transformar lo transitorio en algo imperecedero. Para Mann, la palabra que derrota la muerte es igual al amor, porque el amor que Katia le dio era como el verbo hecho carne. Fue lo que inspiró su vida, le dio vida a su vida. Ni bien vio la mirada desconcertada del profesor Loeffler al hablar de la palabra que vence a la muerte, supo que no tendría mucho sentido tratar de explicarse. Solo quien ha tenido la suerte de haber sido tocado por la amistad o el amor en tiempos de dolor y congoja, sabe por experiencia que hay una palabra que derrota la muerte. Gracias.
Okay. Gracias, Regina. Thank you. Well, this was a part of the first essay that is called Lecciones de un moribundo. Ahora le pido I will ask to Emilio Lenón Durán, a student from philosophy, that is going to read a passage from the second essay that is called La bandera de la esperanza, no? The flag of faith, of hope. Adelante. It's from philosophy.
Voy a leerles un fragmento del capítulo La bandera de la esperanza, y dice así: Koschrak tuvo mucho más éxito con su literatura infantil, especialmente con su libro más conocido, que también fue publicado en español, El rey Matías I. A los 12 años de edad, y al morir sus padres, los reyes Matías, asciende al trono. El rey niño tiene un programa político ambicioso. Quiere reformar el mundo para que sea mejor y más justo, y sobre todo para que se respeten los derechos de los niños. Pero fracasa debido a la oposición de los adultos, a su falta de experiencia y a la corrupción de su primer ministro, un amigo de la infancia. El único apoyo genuino para sus planes de crear un mundo mejor se lo dan un colega suyo, el rey de África, y sobre todo la hija de este, la bella y sabia Tlutlu, que también tiene 12 años y que muy a su pesar se ve obligada a comprobar lo siguiente: ¿cómo puede ser que los europeos inventen tantas cosas inteligentes cuando son al mismo tiempo tan tontos y brutos? Y la joven princesa dice algo parecido sobre el comportamiento de muchos varones. A medida que aumentan los problemas del rey Matías por la obstrucción con la que se ve confrontado, se dice: Los verdaderos héroes emergen cuando hay contratiempos. Así es como Koshrak quiere enseñarles a sus jóvenes lectores que nada es tan importante como el cultivo de la fuerza mental, y espera que su público adulto comprenda que un mundo mejor no es posible si antes no se construye un mundo mejor para y con los niños. En el discurso de despedida de Koshrak les dedica a un grupo de jóvenes que por su edad ya debían dejar el orfanato, expresa con gran contundencia sus ideas sobre la educación y formación espiritual con la que los jóvenes adultos deben salir al mundo. Esto es lo que les dijo: os decimos adiós y os deseamos lo mejor en vuestro largo viaje a un país lejano. Es un viaje que tiene un solo nombre y destino: vuestra propia vida. Hemos reflexionado mucho sobre cómo despedirnos de vosotros, qué consejos daros para su viaje, pero lamentablemente las palabras son vehículos demasiado pobres y débiles a la hora de querer expresarnos. Dicho de otra manera, no tenemos nada para daros en el camino que ahora debéis recorrer. No os damos ningún Dios, porque a Él deberéis buscarlo vosotros mismos en una batalla solitaria con vuestras propias almas. No os damos una patria, porque tendréis que encontrarla mediante los esfuerzos de vuestros propios corazones e ideas. Tampoco os damos amor por vuestros semejantes, porque no hay amor sin perdón, y perdonar nunca es fácil. Cada uno tiene que decidir si está dispuesto a cargar con ese peso. Por eso os damos una sola cosa: el anhelo por una vida mejor que todavía no es realidad, pero que alguna vez lo será, una vida de dignidad y justicia. Y posiblemente ese anhelo os conducirá a Dios, a una patria de verdad y al amor. No lo olvidéis. Adiós. Quienes ahora visitan lo que fue el campo de exterminio de Treblinka en Polonia, encuentran ahí, a manera de un cementerio simbólico, una gigantesca colección de grandes y rocosas piedras memoriales que llevan los nombres de los lugares de origen de los 900.000 judíos que allí fueron asesinados. Solo una piedra tiene el nombre de una persona: Janusz Korczak y niños. Ahí, en esa piedra, está inmortalizado su nombre, junto con el recuerdo de los niños que jamás iba a abandonar a su suerte. Y su bandera de la esperanza, la tela verde y blanco con las imágenes de un trébol dorado de 4 hojas y la estrella azul de David, que probablemente fue quemada, pisoteada o hecha a pedazos, ni bien llegó el tren ese 6 de agosto de 1942, nunca fue otra cosa que un símbolo. Para Janusz Korczak, la verdadera bandera de la esperanza siempre ha sido su educare, la formación a la que cada niño tiene derecho, la que necesita para crecer con personalidad propia y una sólida brújula moral, un gran sentido de la responsabilidad y fuerza de voluntad. Janusz Korczak tenía la profundísima convicción de que sólo así, cuidando esa bandera de la esperanza, la humanidad estará en condiciones de hacer posible esa civilización descrita de manera insuperable por Goethe, como un ejercicio permanente de respeto, respeto por lo divino, la tierra, por nuestro prójimo y también por nuestra propia dignidad.
Muchas gracias, Emilio. Muchas gracias, Emilio. Y ahora hacemos la tercera lectura. Le pido a la alumna Karen Paula Tejeda Mora, also a student of creative writing, de escritura creativa. She's going to read a passage, o leer un pasaje de The Art of Reading. ¿No?
Buenas tardes. Bueno, mi nombre es Karen y, como ya se mencionó, voy a leer un fragmento de Leer y el arte de vivir. Es la naturaleza, la impactante bóveda celestial, la que nos hace sentir cuán insignificantes somos. Sin embargo, el hombre insignificante es más que la naturaleza, porque es consciente de que existe un mundo espiritual y un orden moral que nos trascienden. Pero si esto es cierto, ¿por qué siguen vigentes las preguntas de Giacomo Leopardi hace en sus Canti? Naturaleza humana, si solo eres débil e ignoble, polvo y sombra, ¿para qué tanta ambición? Pero si en parte eres noble, ¿por qué tus mejores actos y propósitos son tan fácilmente inspirados y al mismo tiempo vanos por causas tan indignas? Hay que conocer al hombre. Los seres humanos son las únicas criaturas de la tierra que son de naturaleza ambigua. Albergan esa noción del mundo espiritual y los valores absolutos que dan vida. En ellos puedes reconocer la imagen de su verdadero ser humanos, pero también son criaturas de carne y hueso. Tienen intereses, deseos, temores, instintos e impulsos. Su condición pasajera implica que sepan de la muerte, las pérdidas, lo trágico y la tristeza. Se sienten paralizados porque no lo saben todo, no lo comprenden todo. Pueden enceguecerse a causa de pasiones oscuras, destructivas, autodestructivas. Se sienten limitados porque siempre buscan, siempre preguntan, sin alcanzar nunca la perfección a la que aspiran. Porque saben, porque son conscientes de esa imagen, de lo que realmente es ser humanos, esos valores y virtudes eternos. En el Fausto de Goethe se puede leer: el hombre solo se extravía mientras está buscando su objeto, pero confiésate vencido y humillado, si has de reconocer que un hombre bueno, en medio de las tinieblas de su conciencia, se ha acordado del camino recto. ¿Quién es el hombre y quién debería ser solo el poeta? Puede decírnoslo, porque los hechos, las definiciones, la lógica, es decir, la razón, nunca son capaces de expresar lo que vive nuestro corazón ni de responder a sus preguntas. Únicamente a través de nuestro lenguaje, el lenguaje de las musas, los humanos pueden saber quiénes son. Sus experiencias más profundas son audibles, inteligibles y visibles en ese lenguaje. Solo ese lenguaje les permite conocerse, conocer su alma, ser capaz de hablar de su vida interior y compartirla con los demás. Y al otro, al semejante, lo conocen porque pueden ver de manera diferente el mundo gracias a la imaginación del poeta. Todo esto significa que tiene una idea de la existencia pura e intacta, que saben quiénes deberían ser en tanto que seres humanos. Y la brecha entre su realidad y esa verdad se cierra en el lenguaje, en las obras del escritor y del artista.
Okay, gracias, Karen. Muchas gracias, Karen. Thank you very much. Well, this is the section of readings. Now, Karen, now that you're there, which is your question after reading? And begin the conversation.
Yes, I would like to say that I really enjoyed your book, especially the third chapter, where we can more clearly see the power of reading. And my question is, as writers, as humanists, but above all, as human beings, in what ways do our words conquer death in our everyday lives? And from that idea, what role do we play in shaping the future of the world?
Wow.
Gracias, Karen.
That's, first of all, what's your name?
Karen.
Karen. Okay, well, thank you, Karen, for reading and your efforts and a very profound question. So the first part of the question is which words can conquer death, right? Oh, no, maybe I'll have to put it, if I put it up. Ah,
Yeah.
okay, now it's working. Okay, so, does she have a microphone? Yeah, I want her to have a microphone.
Okay.
Because this is class, right? Okay. Do you know words that can conquer death?
No.
No?
No.
Are you sure?
Maybe.
Maybe. Okay, let me help you. Because it's not that difficult. If you know that you did something wrong, right? To some of your family, to a friend or whatever, you know what you did just was not right. And you feel guilty about it. And if that person then tells you, don't worry, it's okay, I forgive you. That is a word that conquers death. Because suddenly, in that word, it takes away your guilt, and you know we can get along together again. It's a very important word to say, I forgive you. In a more positive way, imagine you come across somebody else and that person is feeling very depressed, doesn't know what to do, everything is hopeless, and feels very, very lonely. And that you are the one who said to this person, but you know, I love you. That will change everything. Because suddenly that one person realizes, but at least there is one on the planet, one person who really loves me. So that too is a word that conquers death. Now, these are very practical but very important examples of the power of expression, the power of what you can do with words, right? And also how important it is that your words are meaningful, that there is a truth in your word, that you're not lying. because everybody can say, you know, I'm your best friend, but then you don't notice there is no friendship, and it's just a lie. But if you really experience, wow, what has been said, it's life transforming. Now, there is also a psychological, very important part. It comes from Sigmund Freud, which was so well read in the first reading. And I appreciated enormously that you have chosen the letter of Sigmund Freud to Thomas Mann. We'll talk about it in a minute. But it was, so Freud, whom, like Thomas Mann, I'm on the side of Thomas Mann. Freud was a genius to understand the human psyche. And he, also because of your age, there are two things which, according to Freud, are very important in becoming a mature human being. The first thing is, at a certain moment, quote unquote, you have to kill your parents. Kill the parents first. Because if you continue on the level of my father is my best friend, my mother is my best friend, whatever, you never grow up. You have to kill the, not literally, hopefully, but you have to kill the parents first, right? As a teenager, that's what you do as a teenager. You know, you're idiot, you don't understand me, blah, 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 blah. And then you can meet again as grown-ups, right? You're no longer, you're still the daughter, but you're a mature human being. The second thing is that what you also need is a blessing. And most of the time it will be your father or your mother, but it also can be somebody else, but your father or your mother, who will give you the blessing, whatever you do, it's fine. It's okay. Now, in the Catholic Mass, there is a beautiful word for the benedictus, which means benedice, saying well. This blessing, this saying well, is also the expression of a word that conquers death. Because it can carry you through the rest of your life. That you never forgot that in difficult periods, that one person, your father, your mother, your friend, somebody else, an uncle, a grandma, grandfather, somebody close to you said, don't worry, you can do this. You got the blessing. So, again, these very almost simple but so fundamental things are indeed words that can conquer death. Now, and then there is the philosophical dimension. And the philosophical dimension is that we started to live in an era in which communication, serious communication, has become more and more difficult. It's chatter, it's meaningless, it's propaganda, it's slogans. There is nothing in it. And so in this respect, I do have an issue with the whole thing of, how do they call it, emois or something like that. There's the smileys, there's well, whatever it is, something silly. Well, you know, and it's usual, somebody, so you send the little heart or the thumbs up or whatever. But it is this diminishing the power of language. It's diminishing the power of language. And that seems to me not a very good thing. And so, again, I mean, why is poetry so important? Because the poets have the power to find the words that can conquer death. So, I mean, there was more to say, but for the moment...
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Rob. And continuing, you can give the microphone to Regina. She has a question from her reading also. No?
Yes. First of all, I would like to say that the very first chapter of the book affected me in a way that I was not expecting that a philosophy book would affect me. And the first text in The Word That Conquers Death, for the rest of the audience, is a hybrid between a short story and an essay. And that's what I found. And in this chapter, you describe how Thomas Mann became a humanist, while you also narrate his last days in bed at a hospital, accompanied by his wife, Katia. And I won't spoil the end, which I thought was so beautiful that it led me to the verge of tears. But I will say that I believe that the backbone of this story is built with hope and love. So my question is about hope. In this chapter, you recover the final question from the Magic Mountain, that is, and out of this worldwide festival of death, will love someday rise up out of this too? So with our current political climate, with polarization growing every day, with fascism coming closer and closer, I want to know, what do you think? Will love someday rise up out of this too? And how can we recover hope after death?
What do you think?
I want to think that love will rise up always.
Why?
Because, well, I think it's something that you already talked about in your chapter, but we have to believe, we have to have hope always in people, mostly. We have to be humanists when there is nothing else.
Yeah, look, I'm throwing back the question to you because your future is more at stake than my future, right? I mean, you're 2 generations younger than I am, and most unfortunate, as you just said, we are in this frightening moment of history, literally a century after Thomas Mann published The Magic Mountain, when he wrote the last sentence of this book, which was a question mark, right? It was a question mark. And indeed, so, of course he was not aware that it would be World War II, although and you can read about it in my early book, El Arte de Ser Humanos, the chapter on stupidity and lies, which is also based in a series of stories. And in 2 of the 3, no, in around of the 9, there are 3 stories where you will meet again Thomas Mann, and where he is confronted with the fact that there is this rise of fascism. Now, what many people do not realize nowadays is that this whole thing of fascism, after World War I, when Hans Castorp probably dies, when Thomas Mann has to write, if out of this fest of death will love front rise, Europe was in ruins. You know, it was a civil war and completely ruined Europe, not the United States or here. And then there was a young socialist in Italy, Benito Mussolini, who invented this idea of fascism. And in the 20s, with all the crisis at that time, many people, millions, thought this world of fascism will save the world. In 1935, even Freud dedicated his books to Mussolini with the remarks, "You're the cultural hero of our time." And Churchill, of all people, on February 18, 1933, gave a lecture at the Royal Albert Hall in London, where he said, "Mussolini is the genius of our time and fascism is what we need." Churchill, in 1933, Hitler was already in power. So even those 2 people, 2 of the most brilliant, courageous, good people, took a while to understand what is going on. Now, interestingly enough, my hero Thomas Mann already saw this in the early 20s. At the end of The Magic Mountain, he says, there is a troublemaker coming to the sanatorium, and he was a fascist. And in 1921, in a great essay on education entitled Goethe and Tolstoy, he asked himself the question, if the classic values of Christian, Jewish, Mediterranean heritage, are they there? Are they universal? Are they for all of us? Or are they related just to a period in time? Because if it's just related to a period of time, we can move on. But if they are supposed to be universal, we have to defend them. And so his choice was, I will defend them. But he also then writes, he said, Europe already gave an answer. Europe is now moving into the fascist world. This is what he wrote in 22 and 23. So I'm only saying these things to understand how the complexity of a society and how insightful most of the times novelists, poets, artists are far more than the politicians and even a Freud, right? Now, 100 years later, we are living in a very dangerous time. The rise of fascism is a fact. I wrote about it in my book Para combatir esta era. Unfortunately, when I wrote the essay for the first time in 2010, or when it was published in 2010, nobody wanted to believe me. And again, you know, I would have given everything, what I was wrong and the rest was right. Unfortunately, I was right and the rest is wrong. So we have it. You have it here, we have it in America, we have it in Europe, it's growing. The consequences, because that's the difference between Churchill, Freud then and us now, we know what it is. We know that it is a complete destructive spirit which wants to take away the spirit of democracy. So now how to deal with this, because related to that kind of politics is indeed the whole notion of climate change, and we can blow up. There is this, the threat of nuclear war, and there are many other threats. So when a little bit later Einstein wrote to Freud, why war? You know, you're the genius of it. Why war? It became a very famous exchange of letters. And then Freud said to Einstein, Einstein didn't like the answer, but Freud was right. Look, Einstein was you know, a great physicist. But Freud said, look, best dear Albert, you know, you have to understand, we human beings have those instincts. We have the death instinct, we have the aggression instinct, we have the sex instinct. It makes us the animals which we are as well. And so if we want to understand why war, well, war is the rule and peace is the exception, because human nature will not change. But the only way to avoid this is eros, is love. That's that's not a given, and you know you cannot download it or you cannot buy it in a shop or whatever. It's a thing you have to develop. Now, this is why you have this education. If you are lucky, right? If you're lucky, you get the proper education. You get the indispensable education to become an independent, self-thinking human being who realizes what really matters in your life. And out of that, develop a kind of moral compass about what's right and what is wrong. And as Freud wrote to Thomas Mann, look, you're an artist, you're a novelist, you have a moral obligation. You have the moral obligation not to fool people, but do always and say things what is right. And this is our obligation as well, right? And this should be the obligation. And again, you were very lucky that you are at this university and not at Harvard, Princeton, or whatever, because they are bullshit universities. And they are bullshit universities because they are not taking care for the real education. It's about preparing you for a career at Wall Street or something like that. It is not a preparation for life. It's not a preparation for how to deal with the big issues we are dealing with now. And so, yes, hope, but hope should be sustained in something. Otherwise, it's a kind of illusion, right? Or it's a form of escapism. Hope is extremely important, and we cannot live without hope. And there is a lot of hope, but hope should be sustained in things. And in one of the things it could be sustained in is the knowledge and the courage to do the right thing. And if all goes well, and I'm sure it will, that's the kind of intellectual training you get here. So that when you have finished your studies and you continue in life with the blessing, probably of your parents, you find the strength and the courage to do the things what you believe in and what your passion is.
Thank you very much, Rob. And Well, Emilio, you have a question related with values, if I don't mistake.
Yes, yes. Hi, Mr. Riemen. We're very happy to have you and welcome you here. And I would like to ask you the next question. In your text, you try to bring back to our present day the values that form the spirit of the West, such as freedom, equality, and justice. However, in our times, we can see how these values have lost its ontological depth and how, little by little, fascist and populist discourses around the world are taking these values that I mentioned before for political benefits. So, how can we, as human beings, distinguish these purely political use from that which has true meaning for our lives and future?
You're studying philosophy, right?
Yes.
So you can help me to find an answer.
I don't know, maybe we should train or put in practice our critical thinking, but it's very difficult, I think, in our present, because all the societies and world and forcing us to the other side. So it's very difficult to me to answer that question.
And you never considered to push back?
Yes, but we live in a context that doesn't allow us to, to go to the other side. And it's very difficult. It requires a lot of effort. Yes.
Okay, no, look, I'm teasing you only a little bit, but as part of your education, did you also already had to read the Ethics of Spinoza?
Ethics of
Yeah.
Spinoza? Yes, the last part of the Ethics?
Yeah.
Yes, I remember that quote.
You remember the last sentence,
Yes, the last
right?
sentence, yes.
Repeat it, because everybody should know what the last sentence is.
I'm going to say it in Spanish.
Uh-huh.
Todo lo bello es... I don't remember. Es todo lo bello... All the
beauty is?
All the beauty is...
All things excellent
Todas las cosas excelentes son tan
are
buenas.
as difficult as rare.
Yes.
Which is a very profound remark of this brilliant philosopher. And the consequences are clear. If you want to achieve something excellent, you have to accept that it's difficult and rare. And so look, I'm not a fool, and I also was young. And part of growing up is that, quote unquote, it's not nice to be the outsider, right? Everybody would like to have a sense of, I'm part of the group, I'm appreciated, etc. Although there is a very interesting book by Colin Wilson called The Outsider, which was, of course, written in the 60s, where the younger generation were so fed up with the world as it was, that they started, we have to be the outsider. That's one thing. But it is a natural thing to be part of the group. But then again, you have to rethink the consequences. Because when is it that you're part of the group, and when is it that you start to participate in the psychology of the crowd? Because the crowd, which was, I forgot his name, but was a teacher of Freud, the crowd doesn't think. The crowd is just one huge mob. And you can see it, in a soccer stadium, right? Or when you have your Formula One next weekend, and definitely when you have the World Championships next year, the people in such a stadium response as one big animal, and there is no thinking anymore. Okay, so there have to be limits to the kind of recognition you're waiting for. And it seems to me that the very first thing to be done is to realize it's your life. It's not the life of your father, not the life of your mother, not the life of your friends. It's your life. And you have to face the consequences of the choices you make. Because when you're confronted with things, It's interesting because this weekend we had a lovely dinner with wonderful friends, and one of the daughters, your age, she's now working on her PhD, and I said, are you happy with it? Well, I'm not certain. I said, so why are you doing this? Well, because I want to do this for my parents. And I said, my dear, that's the wrong answer. I love your parents, and I understand why they think it's important for you. But, you have to do the things you believe in which are important for you. So, anyway, to go back to your to go back to your question, the whole idea of a democracy is based on what already Spinoza realized. It comes with conditions. And it comes with the condition that what people should realize, and the political class likes you to believe, is that a democracy is the most difficult and elitist model there is. Dictatorship, tyranny is much more easy because there is this one person, a man or a woman, gender equality, who takes all the decisions and everybody only has to obey or whatever. It comes with a condition, and the conditions are that everybody realizes there is something like a common good, that everybody realizes there is a sense of civic responsibility. I have to play my own role, that everybody has a kind of education and a kind of moral sense, because a democracy is based on the cultivation of moral and spiritual values. A mass democracy, however, is based on fear and greed. Now, to have a real democracy, again, my hero, Thomas Mann, when he gave this lecture on the coming victory of democracy in 1938, he said to the Americans, he said, look, listen, I apologize, coming from Nazi Germany, that I have to talk to you Americans, the country of Lincoln, the country of Whitman, the country of President Roosevelt, that I have to tell you anything about democracy. You're the highlight of democracy, who am I? He said, but look, coming from Nazi Germany, having lived with Mr. Hitler around the corner for almost 20 years, I had an experience you never had. I think it's important for you to know. Because democracy is not the will of the people. And every political leader or every president who says, I'm democratic because I do the will of the people, know that he or she is a fundamental liar. Because democracy is not about the will of the people. Democracy is based on a certain set of fundamental values, like having a constitution, having the rule of law, having a balance of power, and having a society which is driven by moral and spiritual values, and it wants to elevate people, not to keep them down, not to make them ignorant. It wants to elevate people to their better selves, and therefore, as Thomas Mann argues, it's based on education. It's an education so that people can aspire and to know the truths which we can find in science, art, and religion. Now, okay, unfortunately, we have come to live in a world in which we no longer know what democracy is, where democracy has become the biggest lie, the biggest slogan expressed ever, and where a whole generation, especially of young people, are brainwashed by ideas that everything has to be efficient, productivity. It's the economic business model, because I repeated it already several times, but I love to repeat it again, because it's such a wonderful story. When one of my heroes, Friedrich Nietzsche, became a professor in Basel, he was only 25, 26 years old. I mean, he was a brilliant guy. And so the students were pretty much in awe with this strange guy with the huge moustache, and they asked him, the student organization, well, professor, may we invite you to give a lecture on education? Nietzsche said, well, no, okay, well, why not? But what kind of topic? And I said, well, maybe you can say something about the future of education. And Nietzsche said, okay, well, give me a few weeks and then I'll... So he gave 5 lectures. He did not publish it himself. By the way, he didn't publish that much himself. For those who want to aspire to be a writer, Nietzsche sold in his lifetime 421 copies. And most of the books he had to pay for himself because the publisher didn't want to publish his books, right? So, but he spoke about the future of education, and his main message was to the students then. He said, ladies and gentlemen, I pity you. I really pity you because the school of civilization is over. Your education will be reduced to what's good for the state, what's good for the economy, and you would not have a problem with it because your only interest is to make money, if possible a lot of money. This is 1874. Definitely when you go to the Shanghai list of the so-called universities, this is exactly what they do. They want you to be a kind of robot who is can function in the state and the economy. Therefore, they create programs like science, technology, economics, and mathematics. Forget the humanities, forget literature, forget creative writing. Do not even the word philosophy because they start screaming. But if you want to understand why the world is as it is, why the fascist movements are now so often in power, it is exactly because these things, and the point is, there are not that many universities as you have the luck to be part of, right? So, instead of thinking, when it's difficult, take it as a compliment, right? Okay, if it's difficult, it will be a good thing to fight for. Don't go with this idea that everything should be easy because life is never easy. Real life is never easy, that's one thing. The second thing is realize it's your life, it's not the life of others. Because when it comes to real issues, nobody will be there to help you. Unless there are those people who say, I love you. But first of all, be able to do things yourself. And then do the right thing.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Rob. Thank you for the students. And well, I want to make more question, and then to open in the time we have the forum for all the people that is being here, that be free to ask Rob, and after that to close. I want to say three things. Well, maybe one thing and two quotes of your book. No. When I was reading your book, we have the fortune to read the other books. Emilio also surprised me that he also reads your books already, no? And then sometimes I ask myself, who is the author? I don't know, I don't want to say that you are not the author, but this book in particular, you begin to making mise en scène, as the filmmakers say, no? And you say this is the theater of the great quantity, and then appear some shadows, no? Simone Weil, George Bernanos, some of them very unknown for the mainstream academics in a way, no? And then you say, almost you say like that, what I'm going to write is, you don't say like that, but you say, it's not me, it's Clio that is talking to me. And then I quote what I translate in English, no? And Clio says, this book, what is this book? Are the stories of real people whose life and lessons of life, as our students have read, know how to pronounce the words that defeat death, and because of this provoke hope. For this is absolutely necessary, the art of reading as a grammatic of life. That word, grammatic of life, as the art of living. And then at the end of the last chapter, before the last chapter, that is the utopia, no, in a dystopic, not fantasy, a dystopic reality, no, you say that the art of reading, and I quote again, is a quote that if we say it loud, as we do it now, in these times will be a scandal, no? Like Christ was a scandal in his time, in a way, no? And the quote is that the spiritual war, the grammatic of life, is a moral order, no? Today you pronounce moral order, people say, no, my freedom, no? And culture is not other thing than the art of expressing truth. And today we take culture to identify any kind of repeated practice, no? That are not cultures at all, no? But because you say here, and culture is not other thing than the art of expressing truth. The moral values and everything that has meaning, then culture is always the expression of a moral consciousness, and its support is a religious consciousness. Then at the end of the book, finally, I finish reading. And when you say at the end of your book, utopia in a dystopic, I get sense that all your book has a religious sense. And I want to know what you mean as a religious base of the book. What you mean about that? And I think so. That's my opinion. No? And then we can open the forum.
Okay, well, you asked me who wrote the book, right? Well, Cleo. So you should ask her. No. What I did was, making a little reference to the famous opening of the Ilias, right? O Muse, give me the words, whatever. Okay. And then I'm the humble servant who write down these things. You are absolutely right to ask attention for the confusion about the concept of culture. Because you're absolutely right, everything nowadays is culture, right? Yes, in an anthropological sense, that's correct. There's a culture of European culture, American culture, indigenous culture, female culture, whatever, right? Everything that has a certain distinction can be a culture. But that's not the original meaning. And so the whole book is also a kind of purpose of trying to reclaim the original meaning of certain words. Now, the original meaning of the word culture comes from a phrase by Cicero in his Tusculan Disputations. Cultura animi philosophia est. The cultivation of the soul is the quest for wisdom. So our word culture comes from this phrase. And with it, Cicero also gives the original meaning of the word. The original meaning of the word is the cultivation of the human soul, is the quest for wisdom. So according to the Greeks, according to this world of Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, and copy-paste by Cicero, the original meaning of the word culture is that culture is that metaphysical place because it's not empirical, where you can experience the metaphysical values. Because with truth we see the same phenomenon, right? Follow the science. Yes, of course, in many ways we can follow the science. But the scientific truth is a very limited truth. It's basically an expression of knowing the facts. But it doesn't give any meaning. So one of the philosophers, and you know that all too well, it was Wittgenstein who wanted to make the distinctions, right? That there is a fundamental distinction between a scientific truth and a metaphysical truth. And the famous last sentence of his Tractatus. Über was man nicht sprechen kann, darüber muss man schweigen. What you cannot speak about, you have to be silent about. What he wanted to mean with it is that it's not allowed just to do blah, 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 blah about the most fundamental metaphysical. Okay, so there is a metaphysical truth, there is goodness, beauty, that they are absolute values. But because they are absolute, it comes with two consequences. Consequence number one is you cannot claim it. Here is where you see the dangers of fundamentalists and ideologues. They claim to know the truth. They claim to know what's good. They claim to know all these things. But because you are transcendental, because you cannot claim it. But what you have to do is, and this is where the whole pedagogy of European humanism comes in, is your life should be one huge striving for trying to incarnate at least those fundamental values as part of your life. And the most beautiful expression of this whole experience is Thomas Mann's Joseph und seine Brüder. So here we come to the religious part of it, right? Well, again, as a trained theologians, we have to find out what are we talking about if we talk about religion. Because quite interestingly, the most devastating criticism of religion you find in the Bible. The book of Job is one huge, phenomenal attack on being religious. Because you have Job, who, due to this strange thing between God and the devil, is losing everything, literally everything. And then you have those very religious friends who are coming and telling, well, you know, because they are so religious, they know exactly, you know, why God is doing these things, etc., etc., etc. The point is that, unfortunately, too many of the, I mean, there are always good people, but too many of the evangelicals nowadays, or this. Not to mention those idiots who are now going to Israel. They know what God wants, etc. So, and Karl Barth, which was also a friend of Thomas Mann, he too was on a fight against religion. So, if we talk about this kind of religion, my books, my work is the total opposite of it. I'm interested in trying to find, you know, what is really meaningful, what is the meaning of words, and then in stories try to convey to others. But if you talk about religion in the sense of exploring a transcendental world, which is crucial for us to make our life meaningful. And if we then translate it into more practical terms of, like Cicero, the cultivation of your soul, then yes, I'm on your side. Now, it's interesting that, again, we have come to live in a time where all those words are more or less taboo, right? Culture, soul, quest for wisdom. You know, we are working on data science, we have information, and we have artificial intelligence. The soul, no, there's a human. But again, it's a mistake. And for me, the power of literature, and we can, you know, I can give a whole list of the big names, but also Proust, À la recherche du temps perdu, or Victor Hugo in Les Misérables. They are the most haunting, beautiful stories about what life is all about, what you can experience, and, you know, then what to do when you have those experiences. And again, there's a phrase in Dante, and Steiner was also very fond of it. Dante in Inferno meets his teacher. I forgot his name. And, well, for some reason, this teacher is also in Inferno. And then Dante expresses his gratitude to the man. He said, because you taught me how to make my life eternal. And it's not an eternity in terms of transhumanism or something like that, but it is an expression of how to make those eternal values, to make them in my own and in his art. I mean, how is it possible that 1,000 years later we still can read the Dante? How is it possible that we still can listen to Bach? How is it possible that we still can refer to the sonnets of Shakespeare? Because that's the power of great art. And by the way, this was also the ambition of Kafka. It was a beautiful letter of him where he said, well, this is what I want to do. Musil, the same thing. So, and okay, yes, and this is the great art, but for us, quote unquote, very ordinary human beings, it simply comes down to do the right thing. And then people will recognize you as a good human being who, with all its flaws and difficulties, and as we started the conversation, you will never forget that person who in a difficult moment in your life said to you, I love you, or you can do it, or I trust you, just go ahead. For sure, you will never forget it. Now, having the capacity to do something like that, then you already made your life in a certain way eternal.
Thank you very much. Very good question and answer.
A brilliant question.
Respond.
A brilliant question.
No, your question, your response is a question. Then we have some time for people here present if somebody has a question to do. ¿No? ¿Alguien más? ¿Alguien quiere hacer alguna pregunta? ¿Le puedo ayudar con el inglés si gusta? ¿No? ¿Alguna más? ¿Ustedes? ¿No? ¿No?
She has a question.
No,
¿El micrófono?
Sorry, I remember that in the first chapter of your book, you already talked about how religion is inherent to all human beings. So I was wondering if I could read that little fragment for everyone here, because I thought it was really not only beautiful but concise. But I just need to find it. If anyone else has a question, maybe. While I find the...
Okay, well...
But can you repeat the question?
Yeah, that in the essay of Thomas Mann, there's a passage that she wanted to find, to read, where you say how religion is inherited to us. But she's trying to find the passage, maybe you remember?
I found it. I just want to read this for everybody here. Bueno, decía que hay un momento en el que el autor habla sobre la religiosidad del hombre, y creo que ahí queda bastante claro, que dice, Mann sabe que el humanismo siempre es un humanismo religioso, tanto en su origen histórico como por su esencia, y es que la religión poco tiene que ver con iglesias o las instituciones doctrinarias, y mucho más con la idea de que el hombre es un secreto para sí mismo y siempre lo será. Los humanos somos seres religiosos porque no somos meramente transitorios, sino también espirituales, y por lo tanto conocemos lo absoluto, el mundo metafísico de las ideas con sus valores sempiternos.
Yeah, it's this passage of where you say that man says that human being is religious because he's a secret for himself.
Yeah. Yes. So the what I also write in that chapter is that Thomas Mann. So Thomas Mann came in a certain way. He came from far. Right, when he was working on those reflections of an unpolitical man, and when he had this huge fight with the brother he loved most, and they didn't speak with each other for 7 years, right? Because at that moment, Thomas Mann had more faith in the German Empire, the world of culture, the world of Bach and Beethoven and whatever, and he had strong suspicions about democracies and what he already saw was, related to materialism and technology and all these things, and it would take away something of our human soul. What he did see very well at that time was that, and because we are experiencing this now, is what he called the politicization of the mind. and this is also what he said to his brother, he said, the politicization of the mind, the cancel culture is part of this politicization of the mind. You already know your political truth, and because of your political truth, you don't have to listen, you don't have to think anymore, and everything what is not part of it should be cancelled. But then the war was over, extremists took over, there was more and more violence, and then he wrote in his diary, humanism, not German, but essential. And what he also then later told to students in a kind of setting as we are having now, but that was in Princeton, he said that at the very moment you start to do your self-examination, which according to Socrates is the beginning of all wisdom, right? Self-examination, it's the beginning of rethinking things. And so the Magic Mountain, which started as a complete different idea, grew out to this wonderful novel. And in writing this beautiful work of art, which took 5 years, from 1919 till September 1924, he got a much better idea of what it means to be human. And so, and then he indeed says, the protagonist of the book essentially is the Homo Dei. The human being, as we just talked about, with an idea of God, with an idea of the transcendence, with an acknowledgement of the fact that there is more than the senses can know, that there is more than that you can see in the empirical world. Which again is a quite obvious thing, because, the experience of love, of the experience of friendship, of the experience of goodness are beyond these things. But at the same time, because now I only spoke about the beautiful part of life, it was also the experience of pain, the experience of loss, the experience of death. Now all these confusing things together create the riddle of life. That life has become a kind of mystery which brings you to the question more often than you wish, what is it that I have to do? What kind of choices are it that I have to make? What to do now? And also, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? So what Thomas Mann brings in is that being religious is not going to church every Sunday. You can choose to go to church every Sunday, but it's not the essence of being religious. The essence of being religious is having a kind of state of mind that you are open for the fact that there are these riddles, this mystery of life, and that you have to find a language to understand these things, to give it expression, and if you have a poet in yourself, you will become a poet or whatever. But it is about these things. Now, again, what is so sad is that we have come to live in a life where people have more faith in what technology or artificial intelligence or what social media have to offer, instead of opening themselves for what will make their life endlessly more meaningful than the usefulness and the little tricks that this whole new technological world wants to offer them. Is that an answer you can work with?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, good.
Yeah, thank you very much. ¿Alguien más? ¿No? ¿Una? ¿Dos? ¿Tres? Ok. Well, pues queremos agradecerle muchísimo a todos su presencia y sobre todo a Rob Riemen y a Evelyn que hayan estado aquí. Thank you very much, Rob, from our reasons of heart, no, to be here, and you're welcome anytime, anymore.
He agrees?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Good night. I'm Rafael Tobar, Rector of the University. Rob, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for this wonderful conference. Rafael, thank you very much for this fantastic event. Students, thank you for your participation. And to every one of you, thank you. You're always welcome here in the Claustro. Fue una noche verdaderamente fantástica. Gracias a Taurus, a Penguin Random. We had a fantastic lunch. I met Rob and Evelyn this afternoon. We had a fantastic lunch. We started talking about how true change really starts in small places, and I cannot think of a better example than the Claustro for true change to become real. So Rob, thank you again for this wonderful, wonderful evening. Rafa, thank you.
Oh, and there's book signing.